Tesla to $200 or $500 a share after the election today, November 3rd, 2020. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters because without you, this channel doesn't exist. So we greatly appreciate your support. I wanted to note that for Patreon supporters, we have at the highest level daily shows, which we do not have for the regular channel, but we also have access to certain content, including classes on trading and some other lectures that are not available on our main channel. Final note, we do have a few shares of the SpaceX and wanted to note that if you're interested, please drop me a note on the a private message on our Facebook page so that we can get you updated on that. An email address and phone would be helpful. So today's show focuses on kind of an unusual topic, which is a fairly wide range of what's going to happen to Tesla's stock price today. The concept I had behind the show initially was that I primarily was targeting the fact that I think that Tesla's stock price could actually go to $200 a share is a distinct possibility, and we wanted to run through the logic of this. Now, I wanted to highlight that this channel, we talk about Tesla. We also talk about making money. We've had literally hundreds of people make millions of dollars from the analysis that we've provided. And so what I found interesting is that I'll get negative comments, et cetera, about what we talk about. And I don't mind constructive discussions about a topic. But if you feel the need to just make out and out negative comments, this might be a bad channel for you, because we do a lot of things that are different. One of the biggest things we do is about 10% of our viewership are actually traders, maybe daily, maybe weekly or whatever, but they like to make money. And so part of what we like to do is make sure people are well enough informed to actually make money both on Tesla as well as the market in general. So part of that is embracing logic. That might be things that you may not want to hear, but are reflective of good core understanding of what's going on so that you can get your objective and make money. And again, if your goal is to only hear that which pleases you, this isn't the channel for you, because we love Tesla, we love the difference they're making and other companies, but we will say things that are well thought out logic-wise, but not perhaps the happiest moment for Tesla, because we want you to be better informed about everything that we touch on. To that end, I wanted to review with you today something I call the third world phenomenon. So I was actually born in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, and came to the United States. I have an undergrad from Stanford University, did some graduate work at Harvard and Dartmouth in business. And so one of the things that goes on this channel, sort of in the background that you haven't noticed, is that I'm really having a battle with the professors that I have in different sort of from the academy, if you will. So one of the biggest differences between, let's say, going to University of Maryland, which is where I am, and Stanford, for example, is there's a group of professors in the top 15 universities around the world. And they all tend to do research together, and they use that research to sort of impact the world greatly. Most of what they write textbook-wise is then handed down to the schools at the lower tiers, for example, University of Maryland or any of the other schools that are not in that elite group of research universities. So the discipline of how people think about things and do things is a little bit different. Also a reason why you may not want to watch this channel, because we actually think about things that other people don't. And so to that end, today, I wanted to remind you, there's a gentleman named Professor Senge, S-E-N-G-E, I believe Richard. He wrote a book called The Fifth Discipline. Professor Senge is I don't know if he's still alive, but he's a tenured professor at MIT. And he wrote a book called A Fifth Discipline. And one of the concepts of the book is that anytime you have an action there's a reaction to it. So, and then he illustrated it in numerous ways that I thought were really amazing. One of the many ways he talked about is that, think about it, anytime you see a major drug bust where the police officers line up and they're standing in front of large amounts of drugs, and they're patting themselves on the back, what he pointed out is that everyone in law enforcement knows that because these drugs have been taken out of the system, the incremental price of all the drugs in that area has increased because of the lack of that increased supply. So the net of this is that crime actually will rise because people who are addicted, et cetera, and need those drugs will now have to steal incrementally more in order to pay for the drugs that have now gone up in price. So it's a mixed blessing for law enforcement. Not only do they make this big drug bust, but they immediately are going to have more crime reflective of having made that bust. And so he has numerous illustrations of the point of how there are counterweighing forces and everything that occurs. And what I wanted to look at is, in the third world, there's a phenomenon where, in many cases, dictators or leaders tend to avoid leaving office. And the main reason is because there's so much money that they make in office that they can't make out of office, including their supporters, that they pretty much go to any means necessary to retain their roles. Now, I believe we're kind of in that situation right now with Mr. Trump. Unlike in the third world, where you have to, he doesn't need to stay in office because he actually has a job, which is good. The problem, though, that kind of is lurking is the fact that he has a challenge, which is as soon as he leaves office, he no longer has sort of the protections of government lawyers, a phalanx of government lawyers to protect him from the completion of certain lawsuits, as well as other things going on. So based on the number of ongoing lawsuits for a variety of different reasons, I wouldn't be surprised as if he has, $400,000 a week or so legal bill that's rolling in on a regular basis, plus all the penalties associated with all these issues. So Mr. Trump is in an age now, early 70s, where another 4 years puts him almost at 80. So jail time or other issues are no big deal post one more 4-year period. So in this case, it's my belief that, he's making good money. His hotels are full while others aren't because it's part of the lobbying process by, domestic and foreign entities. He also benefits from, around the globe, keeping track of who's staying in those hotels that are his for those who want to do business with him. So the list of benefits for sitting in office for him are rather large. Therefore, the reason I sort of came up with this show, and I'm kind of looking at the stock price swinging heavily based on what happens, is that I saw what I want to say is an impressive process going on from the Republican Party in this case. Part A was to put someone in charge of the post office who then went in and started ripping out sorting machines that were designed to increase the speed of the flow of mail. And not only rip them out, but do it in a manner that once people found out, the destruction of that equipment was so thorough that it couldn't be quickly replaced again. So after I saw this sort of as a phase one, I was like, wow, these guys have really thought it through what they're doing. Phase two of this process that I saw going on was the fact that I saw notices that Mr. Trump would try to use the courts to force a decision to be made on the winner of the presidential elections on the night of the election. So these are sort of obvious methods used to strategically manage how the election could be sort of won if it was sort of close. All you have to do is make sure that the places where the sorting machines are broken are places where people are voting that you don't want to get to, their vote to get in. And then do that across the country strategically, and you could engineer a win in this fashion. So in my mind, I just think this is really a smart move if your objective is for them to win. If you're interested in a democracy working properly, not so much. So I sort of brought up this concept of a $200 Tesla stock price in the next week or so before it might bounce back, because I really think that Mr. Trump is comfortable filing lawsuits that represent his interests and using process to get the win, even if he shouldn't get a win normally. So, as you all know, one of the processes that I'm told of by his business practices is to have contractors do a large amount of work. There's a large bill that comes up, and then he doesn't pay them. And so he gets to elongate the payment process via courts. And when people start looking at their legal costs versus letting the bill go, he can get a win there without necessarily having paid these contractors. It's kind of a legal win, if you will. So one of the problems with all this, though, is that if, in fact, we have, and I don't think the term is right, but there's something called the constitutional crisis, where by some method he might say, hey, I'm invalidating the election, and if I don't win or I'm not about to win, we simply leverage the court system that we now have stacked, combined with maybe executive orders, and now we could have an election that's, a month, 2, 3, sort of out there. So as you watch the stock prices right now, there was a huge downdraft on Friday, and things seem to be coming back right now. But I believe that one of the big risks that's out there for Tesla and other stocks in the market is if we end up with confusion and then maybe a few special federal police or military put on the streets, we could end up in a situation where people become scared to death and decide to run for the hills. And in this case, run for the hills means sell everything you own to avoid a further downdraft. We're a Tesla-focused stock, but we're also entity, but we're also a focus on about a quarter of our viewers actually trade a lot, and we've recommended Apple as well as Amazon. Yesterday's Amazon stock, dropped down almost $100 and finished up the day $25, and I believe it's up slightly this morning along with Tesla. But in general, what's happening is that there's a lot of uncertainty there, and so my encouragement is that you consider lightening up on the portfolio a little bit until everything's known, and then you can come back in, or possibly buy some puts if you don't want to take a tax hit, because if you sell shares, you actually have to pay the capital gains taxes on that. And then if you buy back in, you're rebuilding the position at lower prices, which means you're making money, but you also have a big tax bill. So as a result, it might be a good idea to pick up some puts today as a way to hedge your portfolio. You potentially lose some money on the puts if they end up worthless, but on the flip side of it, you protect the value of your portfolio creatively, and you're able to sort of, take away some of the risks that we're seeing that are going on. So I wanted to bring all this up to you because one of the things my biggest disappointments on my show is there was an incident that occurred with Tesla, or a couple of them over the last 2 months, where on big time days with big changes, be it earnings, potential S&P announcements, et cetera, these are inflection points where things could go great with the stock going up, or they could go bad with the stock going down. And one of the things we wanted to make sure is that for our viewers, we wanted you to be mindful of the potential for crazy things to occur, and to also prepare yourself portfolio-wise for those things that might happen, and therefore not allow you to optimize your interest, which we believe is to make money. So I'm hoping that we don't have a problem. So literally, the thesis of this is, one action results in another. For example, Mr. Trump losing and then him instituting a long list of sort of scorched earth policies that do a lot of damage to the electorate and the economy. And so now we're in this position where, there's been a lot of damage done. How do we clean this up, and how does that whole process work? So I'm looking forward to any and all comments in this regard. We definitely look forward to making sure that you're well-armed, knowledge-wise, to handle what's going on in the marketplace right now. I wanted to also note that for our channel, we typically move on to health tips after we go to the main part of the show. Today's health tips is sort of a review of our usual list, which is don't forget the 25 leg lifts prior to exiting for each day. It strengthens the quad muscles and allows it to support the knees, less chance that you'll have some knee replacement issues, etc. Number 2 is what I call a strange coronavirus one, which is I recently joined LA Fitness. And I just got off the phone last night with a friend of mine who has a good buddy of his who's a member of LA Fitness, and he's gotten COVID for now the second time, driven by his gym membership and the workouts he's doing there. So I have to admit, after hearing some of these things and reading the CDC reports, I now have a new 1-year membership that I need to get rid of because I didn't realize how dangerous it was to go work out, given some of the airborne issues that might happen inside those gyms. Also tells me why Peloton and a number of sort of home gymmy type stocks are actually doing very well, because people are reticent to go into gyms and therefore get sick in the process. The third, so we also wanted to recommend, based on advice from some heavy duty docs, that before going to bed, you don't eat within 4 hours of going to bed, preferably minimum 2. This allows the food to digest, and you don't have stomach acids rolling up into your upper respiratory as you go to bed. And probably my favorite health tip provided by one of our doctor practitioners was that anytime you eat a large meal, your blood flow is primarily to wherever it is to deal with that. And so as a result, if you plan on lovemaking, it might be a good idea to just have a salad or something very light, because to enjoy that realm involves blood flow. And so if that blood flow is going to your stomach, it won't be available to flow to other places for your enjoyment. So any rate, we look forward to very much to your comments. We wish you the best of luck today in a very, I think, challenging day for America in terms of what's going to happen in the election. And I'm hoping we don't have the Sengi response of a loss and then brutalizing the electorate and the economy as a result. But I think being prepared for everything on the table makes sense right now. Any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss German, au revoir French, Lehitro Hebrew, Choda Hafez Farsi, Zdravstvuyte hello in Russian, Ni hao ma hello in Chinese, Namaste Hindi, Assalamu alaikum Muslim, Hey do Swedish, and in Jamaica we say Nuff respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now.